everyone, welcome to Make Moments Matter, a music education podcast, where I share lesson ideas, songs, games, and inspiring things for your elementary music classroom. My name is David Rao, and I am the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. This episode of the podcast is a replay containing the audio version of a Musical Mondays live video. If you're not familiar with Musical Mondays, every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I go live on Facebook and Instagram to share about the lessons that I'm using in class with my students. I give a recap of my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons, and then do a deep dive about one grade level and share the books, instruments, songs, and process that I use to teach the lesson to kids. This podcast episode contains all the audio from the Musical Mondays video, but if you'd like to see a replay of the video itself, you can find a link to the archived video on YouTube when you click the link in the notes for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Here's the show. Hey everyone, my name is David Rao, and I am the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Pinterest, a variety of places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. Tonight, I'm going to be sharing about how I teach the song, Draw Me a Bucket of Water. It has been a process over the years to figure out how to do this in a way that makes sense in my head, makes sense for kids, doesn't draw things out. And so I'm going to share sort of the process and the resources I use to do that. That's coming up in just a second. If you hear about a resource, a book, or something that you're interested in and that I talk about in this video, I put all those things on a page in my blog. I call it the links page. You can go to my blog, makemomentsmatter.org, and click the video tab, or wherever you're watching or listening to this, at the bottom of the caption, there should be a direct link to take you there if you want to get those resources. Okay, also, if you want to not just do a hangout on the computer, through a podcast, whatever, however you're accessing this content, I'm doing live in-person stuff. I have a workshop with the Greater Rochester Orff chapter. That's on April 18th in Rochester, New York. I hope you'll come and join us if you're in the area. And then I'm also teaching Orff Schulwerk levels this summer. I'm teaching Orff Level 1 with the Central Florida Orff chapter and Orange County Public Schools. That's in Orlando. There are only a few seats left for that if you're interested in that. That's June 1st through the 12th in beautiful, sunny Orlando, Florida. And then I'm also teaching Level 2 at the University of Missouri St. Louis. That's July 6th through the 17th. Oh my gosh, you guys, we have housing. I know some folks were trying to figure out their levels courses. It's finding a great teacher, a great place, a great community. And also for some folks, it's if you're traveling, you're but where are you going to stay? The housing at UMSL is so cheap and so easy and wonderful. It's such a fun community. Come and join us if you're looking for a place to do Level 2. We're actually running all 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3 at UMSL, and all 3 levels at Orange County. I'll hope you come to either place and join our community, or whichever Orff level is closest to you. But I think ours are the best. But anyway, come and join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so tonight, this is serious business, y'all. I broke out my whiteboard on an easel because I wanted to share sort of how I teach this song in a way that makes the most sense to me. And I've always loved this song, but I've always had so many why is this? I feel like it's tricky to teach. I think it's weird. There's some weird things about it. So if you don't know this song, it's a fun little song, and it is one that I never did growing up, but I've seen in workshops and I've had fun trying with kids. And so this is the way that sort of makes it work for me. So it's called Draw Me a Bucket of Water. It is a folk song. It's been around a while now. Whenever I teach folk songs to kids and I want to explain new content or new vocabulary or things that are part of the song that maybe they wouldn't know, I like to talk through things. I like to have a visual. I like to have explanations for stuff. So for this specific song, I have a resource I call a favorite folk song set. It's one that I made a couple years ago, and it gives a little bit of context. So as I'm teaching this song with kids, I explain some things. So let me show you the part of the visual. Okay, so let's see if I can get into the right spot here. Hold on. Sorry, Instagram. I gotta turn you around here. There we go. And Facebook. Here you go. Okay, so this resource is called Draw Me a Bucket of Water. That's the folk song. And Actually, I'm going to movie. Sorry, Instagram. I'm going to move you over just a little bit. All right, so called "Draw Me a Bucket of Water." It's an older folk song. This one originally comes from England, kind of, but not exactly. So it was first written down in this thing called Nursery Rhymes of England in 1842. We think, but as with all folk songs, it's changed over time. It's been adapted over time. This one, I think the popularity of it is really attributed to the Gullah people in the South on the Eastern Coast. So I have a whole page about the Gullah people. If you want to explain that to kids and talk with that about kids. I also have British version and an English version because they are different and they've changed over time. And I have a whole page about like how versions might change based on like where it's sung or why it's sung. So there was a version that was like Kansas Play Party songs in 1938. And it is different because of the time they're teaching it, the year, like the place, all that affects why they would change things in different ways. So I also in this, there's like a written notation, musical notation if you want any of that. There's a little visual for how the game works, media links if you want that too. But I made these resources years and years ago so that I could either print it out and use it as a bulletin board or use it as a teaching aid. So there's like a PDF version, there's a PowerPoint version if you're interested. But when I'm explaining this to kids, what do I use this visual for? I use it to talk about a well because in the song we talk about a well, drawing water out of a well. Why would you do that? And so we talk about, like how did wells work? We still have wells, but like they don't look like this. I show this picture of a wishing well and I talk about why they build that little wall around, so that like kids or dogs or people or whatever or balls don't like roll into the well accidentally. If it were just a hole in the ground, like that could happen. And also like why there's a little roof on top so like leaves don't blow in and stuff like that, because you would hate to like pull up your bucket of water and work really hard to get that water out of the well and then for there to be like leaves in the bucket or like a ball in the bucket or a frog or something to get into that bucket. Anyway, so we talk about drawing the bucket. It doesn't mean like paper pencil you draw. It means to like pull up. Like they might know a horse-drawn carriage. They might know that explanation, but draw can mean like to pull or drag. So I have a whole page that sort of talks about that to give them that sort of understanding. So, and then I say, the worst thing is if you get the water all the way up and you've worked really hard and there's a frog in the bucket. That happens because, frogs and snakes and other things sometimes get into the well. So if that were to happen, it'd be disgusting. You'd have to shake out the frog. Anyway, I'm sure that won't happen today in this lesson, in this story. I'm sure that won't happen. We'll get there. Okay, so anyway, that's sort of the context I give when I'm teaching this song, and I talk kids through some of those things as we're getting to them. So the song itself, there are many different versions. Here's the version I use, and it goes, "Draw me a bucket of water for my eldest daughter. There's none in the Wait, hold on. Sorry, there's none in the bunch, there's 4 out the bunch. Go under Sister Sally." Now, there are many versions of this. Maybe that's not the version you use. I'm so sorry if it's not, but you can do however you want. Now, if you are listening to this as a podcast, I have a whiteboard behind me with on one side says in, on one side says out, and I have 4, these are just magnet clips. It doesn't need to be fancy visuals. I just have 4 magnet clips. The 4 are on the out side. Okay, so teaching this to kids, how does it work? Basically, I sing the song. We talk through some of the vocabulary. Draw me a bucket of water. What does that mean? For my eldest daughter. Oldest is the oldest daughter. Okay, so it's another way to say it. So that's the first part. We just learned that A section first. Draw me a bucket of water for my eldest daughter. And probably when I'm teaching that, I would teach it by rote and teach it phrase by phrase. So draw me a bucket of water. They sing back, draw me a bucket of water for my eldest daughter. And then they sing that back. Okay, so just be like phrase by phrase. And then I say, this is the part where we got to get into some counting. There's none in the bunch. There's 4 out the bunch. Go under Sister Sally. So this is where this visual comes in. because I find that this part gets weird and confusing for kids. They're like, what is this about in and out and what? And I say, you know what, right now it doesn't matter. Just, you know that there are 0 in the bunch. Or another way you could say 0, you could say none in the bunch. Okay, so there's none in the bunch and there are 4 out the bunch. And it says, go under, Sister Sally. Well, if we're going to do that, let's take one of these magnets and move it under, and under that little divider line. Now it's in. So wait, we've moved one over. How many are in now? There's 1 in and there are 3 out. Well, then we got to re-sing. Draw me a bucket of water for my eldest daughter. There's 1 in the bunch, there's 3 out the bunch. Go under, Sister Sally. I think that I always tried to jump to the game early, and I like skipped the step of like explaining how this works and why you're like moving one out. And so my kids were like never successful with the numbers. I was always singing that by myself. Like I always got so annoyed. Why can't they get it? So we sing again, go under. So here goes another one. There goes Sally. Apparently there are a lot of kids named Sally in this family. I don't know. Anyway, so now there are 2 in and there are 2 out, and we sing again. And again, every time we do this, I move one of these little magnets over until by the time we're done at the end of the song, there's 4 in the bunch, there's none out the bunch. Go under, Sister Sally. Well, she can't go under because we've done it all. Okay, game over. They're all in. None are out. Fantastic. Okay, so I just teach that, the beginning part by rote. Draw me a bucket. We do that. And then the in and the out, I use this visual. It was so helpful the first time I did it. It is not fancy high tech. It is literally just movable magnets on a whiteboard. But it gives them a visual to like 1 in. And then I say, you know, when we get to something like this where there's 4 in and there's 0, they're used to saying 0. And I say, you know, we have so many other fancy old words in it, like eldest, draw me a bucket. Like let's use another fancy one. Let's say none in, or none out instead of 0 in. Because it's also weird to like, there's 4 in the bunch, there's 0 out the bunch. That's weird. Let's sing none. It flows better. Okay, so let's try. So that's another word that I sort of work in there so they're comfortable with it. Great, whatever. Let's try it again, except this time, and that's when I give them a partner. I use like a random picker to get kids in partners. You could let kids choose their own partner. It doesn't matter. But what I say is, you know, when you are drawing water out of a well, it's a lot of work. If you're lucky, if you're not lucky, you just have a pail on the end of a rope and you're pulling it up. That's not lucky. If you're more lucky, they have these cool contraptions on the top of the well where it's like you kind of like wind and pull. And when you wind and pull, like it winds the rope, and you're just doing this sort of cool thing. It's a little bit easier on your arms. It's not as awkward. And if you're very, very lucky, you have a friend there to help you. And that friend, you tug and pull together and you bring that water. It just makes it so much more simple. Anyway, you're going to get to do this with a partner, and you're going to get to pull the water out together. Okay, so when I did this song initially, and when I've seen it done, I saw people who they held hands. The kids would hold hands and go back and forth. And then when you get to the game in a minute, it becomes very awkward because you're bringing your arm over and you're like getting really, really close. A couple years ago, I was like, ooh, I am not comfortable with that. How can we do this instead? Because I think it was COVID, maybe the year that I was like, we can't get that close. What are we going to do? Or it was like the year after, I was like, I don't feel that comfortable. So instead, I heard someone say like, well, when you're doing movement stuff, what if you use scarves? So I pulled out a bunch of blue scarves, and basically like I had each kid had 2 blue scarves and their partner had 2 blue scarves. So it was like pulled across. So they have the scarves connecting them and they're like pushing and pulling. That means they're about 2 or 3 feet apart, which is fine. And they're pulling on the scarves to try and get the water out. We go through the song one more time with you and your partner just doing this action. Draw me a bucket of water. Dun, dun, dun. And we redo the counting. Only now it's with a partner and you're doing this action with the scarves. That's like literally the only thing that changes. But it's just another chance to like practice it and try it and get the process of like, how does that work? Only you have the scarves in your hand and you're going back and forth with one other person. If we're successful with that and we make it all the way through the song with moving one over every time, by this point, they're pretty good at the singing of the song. They're also pretty good at understanding the action. So I don't have to worry so much about that because then we're going to complicate the action they do, right? But at this point, they've heard the song enough times. They've worked through the process of moving one thing over, like they get it. Okay. So then I take, one group of two and another group of two and make two duets into a quartet. And this is when they cross over. So instead of just having like one person like this, here's a set of two and here's another set of two and they cross over. And so now you're looking across at your partner and you have your scarves, but there are two other people and they have their scarves and you're crossed and it's what? So then this is where things get very excited. And some of my second graders immediately realize like, we're going into the scarves because they're like, wait, there are four out and we're all out. But what happens is you'll have to layer the scarf. Normally this was done with just arms. And I will say again, that is awkward right now. Okay, with my second grade. So we have now scarves. And so like there are going to be two scarves in between two partners and then two others on top of that. And so now I say when you go, oh, under Sister Sally, one arm with one scarf is going to go out and around. And so you've got you're going to have your three partners on the outside, but one scarf is going to go over and bring someone into the circle. So when you move one over, one scarf goes over a person. And then when you go under, another Sally goes under, you bring your other scarf over. And then when you do it again, you bring another scarf over. So by the time you're done, everyone has scarves around and you're inside the circle. Now, when I learned this, when I first started doing this just with arms, it was awkward. The scarves are less awkward. There is a downside to the scarves because the scarves mean that you're not like holding hands and like right around each other. That is more awkward. But with the scarves, then what tends to happen is the scarf is going to end up on this part of a person's body or lower on like their butt, right? And so then it's like weird. You're like drying someone off like with a towel, like because you and your partner have your scarf and you're like doing that around the other two. It's kind of weird, but it's less weird than when you were like this close to all the people and you have your arms around them all and you're like hugging them. That just did not work for many years. The scarves make it very simple or more simple. I also know people who will do this with pool noodles. They have pool noodles that are chopped like 1 or 2 feet long. So then instead of a scarf, which can like fall down and like you have to re-grab it, the pool noodles are a little bit easier to grab and they hold their shape. So it's like extending your arm 2 or 3 feet because you're extending with the pool noodle. I like the scarves because they are bendable and whatever. And so if you have some kids who like have to move around a little bit, it's not as big of a deal. Plus also I feel like if you have the pool noodles, it's going to be like you're going to be whacking kids on the head. You're not going to do it, but like other kids will whack kids on the head. So I think that the scarves really work well for me. Here I can show you a visual of like what I'm thinking about, like the scarf thing and like talking through. So if you look, you can sort of see that like the scarves are there and you bring one person over, you bring another person over, the scarf over another person, bring them into the circle, you bring another person over. So by the time you're done, you're at that like figure 5 where all 4 of you are inside. Now, like I said, originally it was linked arms, but in my class, it's scarves. So you still are connected to your partner and it makes it a little bit simpler, but it's not as awkward because of personal space reasons. But taking the time to do the in and the out with the magnets and to like show them the in and out, it helps cement like the form of the song. And so when you get to actually like pulling scarves over to bring kids in, then they're like, oh, it's like what's happening in the song. It's a parallel to that. I'm like, yes. And it feels more comfortable. Okay, let me see if I can do another visual just to show because Instagram Junior Man 00 on Instagram is asking. So basically, here's me. I'm holding scarves with my partner, and they're on the other side holding scarves, right? Okay, so then 2 new partners come over, and their scarves are going to layer. It's going to make basically a pound sign in between, a hashtag in between you and the other 4. So I'm looking across at my partner, and then there are 2 other kids who are doing their thing. And at some point, someone's going to bring me under by pulling me under with the scarf like that. Oh, I just love the recorderography I'm doing here. I don't know if you can see. Okay, so I get pulled into. It's really hard to explain this with one person because I'm here just by myself and it's like it has to be a quartet thing. Ooh, one more thing for adaptation. What do you do when you have an odd number or like if you're blessed to have like 24 in a class? Great. But if you are... if you have an odd number, it's odd. So But if you have an odd number, it just doesn't work so well. So what do? I will have like two kids work together to be like one side of a scarf thing. So instead of like a pair and another pair crossed over, I would have like one side be working together. Like they'll act like they're, you know, joined at the hip or whatever, just so you have it, make it work. Kids all the time when you're like, we have an odd number, or we have whatever, kids are like, we'll make it work. We'll figure it out. Or if they'll be like, we don't know, I'll be like, make it work, figure it out. And then they do. So it's not ever been a huge problem. Sometimes I will jump in if I need to, like today I did, because I had like 23 in a class. I was like, if I just jump in, it's going to make this so much easier than if I try and add 3 kids to 3 quartets or whatever. So it just depends on the numbers you have, whether it's easier for you to jump in or for a kid to. So anyway, it gives you some ideas of how you might do that. Okay, so on Instagram, I have kids use invisible bob and lift their arms and pretend he's there. That would work if you're not doing scarves. If you have an invisible bob, the scarf will fall to the ground. It might work if you had pool noodles, right? But if you have an invisible, like, imagined person, the scarves wouldn't work so well. If you are using arms, it might work. If you're using the pool noodles that are hold their shape, that might work. But if you're using scarves, I don't know. But like I said, the scarves are nice because it like extends the range, so you have like 2 or 3 more feet in between you and your partner to make it less awkward for the personal space-ish reasons. Okay, so the Draw Me a Bucket of Water, if you're interested, that favorite folk song, I've linked that on the links page. And it has things for you and things for kids, like vocabulary pages and lyrics and history and culture and all of that, but it also has like the visual of the dance cues, and it has like the different options for lyrics and media links if you want to watch things like that to give you a little bit more. But it is an absolutely accessible song. Where the first time I went and teach it, I was like, this is going to be so much fun and so easy. And then I had like all these issues of like, we don't like that we're so close to each other, just holding arms like this. And I was like, but that's kind of like the fun of it. And then they're like, oh, well, we can't figure out why is it one under, how is it in or out? And which do you sing first? Do you sing in first or do you sing out first? It just was so cluttered and confused that working out the process over time has really helped. And then also the visuals and everything in one place kind of helps too. So I've linked that on the links page. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot the end. So in, out, all of that, you get through. And then the ending part is the best part. I can't believe I nearly forgot that part. So you go under Sister Sally until you have all in, none out. And that's when you realize you've pulled up a bucket of water, and in that bucket is a frog. I previewed this early for the kids. Oh no, what happens if, well, what are you going to do? You got to shake the frog out. And so there you are standing with all the people, and you're here in the middle of this like circle, and you go, frog in the bucket and I can't get him out, frog in the bucket and I can't get him out, frog in the bucket and I can't get him out, frog in the bucket and I can't get him out. And you're either shaking or you're jumping. Probably kids are jumping. And so it's hilarious. And then I speed it up every time. There are different ways to do the frog in a bucket part. They're like I said with the folk song, it's changed so much over time. You can change it how you want, but once you've done everyone from the out to the inside of the circle, it's fun to do the frog in the bucket. That's when it is fun, when you're close, because then it's like, oh my gosh, we're so close. But I will use scarves for this for the rest of the time, because it just makes it less awkward and more simple for kids. Okay, I hope this gives you some ideas of what you could do to modify this or any other song that you want to make it a little bit easier for kids, to make it make more sense. I like to use simple little visuals like this for the in and the out, just so that kids can understand and process through the ideas better before you're trying to have them do it. But I find that like when I isolate the song first, understand the song, and then add simple actions, and then add the complex actions, you're going to be like way more successful than if you're like, okay, you start in a quartet and your arms are linked, and oh my gosh, you don't know the words. That's how I first tried to teach the song years and years and years ago, and it just didn't work. So isolating just the words, teaching the story, giving some vocabulary, putting them with a partner, doing very simplified versions of the actions, and then once it's all solidified and very comfortable, then putting you and your partner with another duet. That's when things get fun. It takes one class to teach this, and then they'll be asking like, can we do Draw Me a Bucket again? Because it's such a fun, silly song. And then they'll ask like, can we switch partners or whatever? Like, Yeah, let's do it again. Okay. But it's a nice one to like start a class with or end a class with. That's like, oh, we know this one. Let's run through this one. It's very fun. And what I found with the scarves is I tried to pull out watercolored scarves and I had like a bunch of blues and light blues. And then I was like, I don't have enough. And then I was like, ooh, whites kind of would mix in. It's whitewater rafting, I don't know, or purple, or ooh, this water's been sitting in the pond a while because you get a green scarf. Or you could just say like, I don't care about the color of the scarves and not involve that at all, and just say like, the scarves are there to help you drop the bucket, or I don't know. You can make it scarf colors or not, depending on if you feel like it. Okay, I hope this gave you some ideas of how you could change and modify this song. Check out the favorite folk song if you want. Come and join us at in-person workshops. We'd love to see you, and think about levels this summer. The seats are filling up, so we'd love to have you. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great week. I'll see you next week for another Musical Mondays video. Bye everyone.